In this video, we're going to be looking at the supply and the demand functions. For demand functions, we are typically going to be using Q for our quantity demanded and P for our price. Demand is the measure of the customer's willingness to produce a good or service at a price P. When our price is low, the quantity demanded is going to be high. You probably know that from how you have seen the marketplace work. And when the price is high, fewer people want to buy that product, and so the quantity demanded is going to be low. Demand functions are decreasing functions. So as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. We see their graphs in two ways. Sometimes they put the P on the horizontal axis, and sometimes they put the P on the vertical axis. P really is our independent variable. The quantity demanded is dependent on that price, but sometimes they draw it as if P is the dependent variable. This is how they do it in econ, and so this is how we're probably going to do it in most of our problems this quarter. Supply functions, on the other hand, this represents the amount of a good or service that is available for sale at a price P. So again, Q is quantity supplied, P is price, and we're talking about the supply. So we're thinking about this from the manufacturer's point of view. So when the price is low, they probably don't want to provide very many because it's not a profitable venture for them. And so the quantity supplied is going to be low. When the price is high, then it's more profitable for the manufacturer to provide a lot of them, so the quantity supplied will be high. Supply functions are increasing functions. And again, we see that sometimes they put the P on the vertical axis and sometimes they put the P on the horizontal axis. We're going to be seeing it mostly this way this quarter. So the market equilibrium, if we have a supply function and demand function, the market equilibrium is the quantity, is the point where the quantity supplied is the same as the quantity demanded. So if we look at our graph here, we can see that these two curves meet up right there. And so that's at the point 300, and then the vertical is 60. So we can see that here. So that tells us our price is $60 and our quantity supplied and demanded is going to be 300 units. So this is our equilibrium point. So this represents our equilibrium price. This represents our equilibrium quantity. When we have more units that are demanded than we have supplied, then we have what's called a shortage. If we look down here at just a random spot, we can see that the quantity demanded is larger than the quantity supplied. So that means that we won't have enough on the shelves in order to meet the demand, and there will be a shortage. We see a shortage when that demand curve is to the right of the supply curve. We have a surplus when the quantity supplied is larger than the quantity demanded. So again, if we just pick a random spot here, we can see that the quantity supplied is over here at 400, quantity demanded is over here at 200, so we have extra units on the shelves. That means we're going to have a surplus. And this happens when our quantity supplied is to the right of our quantity demanded. Let's look at an example. In part A, they're asking us, is there a shortage or surplus when the price is $40? And how much of a shortage or surplus? So here is our price of $40. So if we go over here to our supply and our demand curves, we can see that at $40, our quantity demanded is 350. And at $40, our quantity supplied is 250. So this clearly says that quantity demanded is bigger than the quantity supplied, and so this tells us we are going to have a shortage. We know how much of a shortage by looking at the gap between the quantity supplied and quantity demanded. So our gap is 350 minus 250, so that's going to be 100 units. So we're going to have a shortage of 100 units. Let's look at another one. This time our price is $100, and if we once again go and look at our quantities for that price, so our quantity supplied here is 400, and our quantity demanded is 200. So our quantity supplied is larger than our quantity demanded, so that tells us we're going to have a surplus, and we're going to have a surplus of the gap between those two. So our gap is 400 minus 200, which is 200. So we are going to have a surplus of 200 units. So the next thing they ask us is, what is the revenue when the price is $100? Well, we know that our price is 100, and we also know that our revenue always equals our price times our quantity. So we're going to have 100, and then we're going to multiply by something. So we just need to look up here and figure out how many are we actually going to sell if the price is 100. So we know that we have a demand of 200, and we have a supply of 400. We can't sell all 400, which is how many we have on the shelves, because we only have 200 that people actually want to buy. So the number that we're going to sell is actually just 200. So this tells us that our revenue is going to be $20,000. Let's look at another example. In this example, we are going to determine where that equilibrium price is and quantities are. So we're given our two functions here, and we have to figure out where those two meet up. So if they meet up, then at the point of the meetup, so remember, maybe this is my supply, here's my demand, we're looking for that spot right there. At this place where they meet up, the price and the quantity are the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these two things equal to each other. So we're going to have negative 0.5 Q plus 78 is going to equal 2/3 Q plus 8. So we need to solve here. So let's see, I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, and I'm going to add, I'm going to think of this as 1/2 instead of 0.5. So I'm going to add, not plus or minus, I'm going to add 1/2 Q to both sides. So on the left hand side, those are gone. We're just going to have 70. And on the right hand side, we need to figure out how we can add those two. So 2/3 plus 1/2, we could, do the work of figuring out where those, getting a common denominator and, adding together. So let's see, the common denominator would be 6. So I'm going to multiply this by 2/2, multiply this by 3/3. So we're going to have 4/6 plus 3/6. So that's going to be 7/6. So we're going to have 7/6Q. And to get just Q, all I need to do is divide by that 7/6, or we could multiply by 6/7. So we're going to multiply on both sides by 6/7. So those 7s cancel out, and I just end up with Q equals 60. So the quantity is going to be 60. I still need to figure out what the price is. So I could use either of these two equations, either one, doesn't matter. I'm going to plug in 60 into one of them. So let's go ahead and use the first one. So we have P equals negative 0.5 times 60 plus 78. So that gives us negative 30, because half of 60 is 30, plus 78. So that's going to give us 48. So our price is $48. Our quantity supplied or demanded is going to be 60 units. Now, if you struggle with doing the arithmetic with fractions, I'm going to show you in a minute how to do that on the calculator. Okay, so our next question is there a shortage or a surplus when the price is $60? So before we actually figure out whether we have a shortage or a surplus, let's just sort of remember, here we have our supply function, and here we have our demand function, and we know that those two meet up right here, which is 60 units, $48. And so if our price is $60, that means our price is going to be up here. And so see how our quantity supplied is going to be larger than our quantity demanded? So I think this is going to be a surplus, but let's check. So the first thing we need to do is take our demand function and figure out what Q is, and then take our supply function and figure out what Q is. So what we have here is, so we're going to start with our demand. So we're going to have 60 equals negative 0.5 Q plus 78. Let's see, subtract 78 from both sides, and I get negative 18 equals, I'm going to write this as negative 1/2 again. And then I could multiply both sides by negative 2, and that's going to make my fractions go away. And so I get Q equals 36. Let's do the same thing with the supply function. So my supply function, we have our P is 60, so we're going to have 60 equals 2/3 Q plus 8, subtract 8 from both sides, and we're going to get 52 equals 2/3 times Q, and then I just need to multiply both sides by 3/2. And if I grab my calculator here, so if I take 3 divided by 2 times 52, I get a Q of 78. So just so we can keep track of things, this is the quantity supplied, this is my quantity demanded. The last thing we need to do is figure out, is it really a surplus or did we think wrong and it's a shortage? But it looks like our quantity supplied, which is here, 78, is larger than that quantity demanded, and so it's definitely a surplus. We just need to figure out what is that gap. So our gap is 78 minus 36, and so that is going to be 42. So we have a surplus of 42 units. Let's continue. So this time we have a price of $30. So again, let's sort of draw ourselves a picture. We've got our supply curve going up this way. We've got our demand curve going down that way. Remember, this is the point 6048. And this time our price is $30, so that's going to be below that 48. And so we can see our quantity demanded is to the right of our quantity supplied. So this is going to be a shortage. So we would need to go through that same process. So we're going to start with our demand. So we need to solve 30 this time equals negative 1/2 Q plus 78. So subtract 78 from both sides. 30 minus 78 is negative 48, is negative 1/2 Q. Multiply by negative 2 on both sides, and we get Q equals 96. For our supply, we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going to have 30 equals 2/3 Q plus 8. Subtract 8 from both sides, we're going to have 22 equals 2/3 Q. So let's use the calculator to do this calculation this time. So if I take 22 and I want to divide it by that 2/3, so I'm going to divide by 2 divided by 3. Notice I put that 2/3 in parentheses and I get 33. Okay, so we need to measure our gap. Our gap is going to be 96 minus 33, which is 63. So we're going to have a shortage of 63 units. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is calculate the revenue. And so remember, revenue is price times quantity. And so our price is 30 and our quantity. So this time we have a demand of 96, but we only have a supply of 33. So even though we could sell 96 units, if we had 96 units on the shelves, we only have 33 units on the shelves. So we're only going to multiply by 33 here. So we end up with a revenue of $990. Let me show you real quick how you can get your calculator to do those fraction arithmetic problems for you. So remember that first one, we were taking 2/3 and we were adding 1/2. We were trying to figure out what that is. So if we type it into our calculator like that and press enter, we get this number. But we want this as a fraction, so the way we would get that is we would press math and tell our calculator to turn that into a fraction. And so we get 7/6. So that can speed up your problem solving quite a bit if you use your calculator to do the fraction arithmetic. That's it for this video. Hopefully you found it helpful.